I'm Joe Hadley with Spotify. I'm the global head of music partnerships and audience. I'm here with Congressman Gabe from Rhode Island. We're celebrating Black Music Month and talking about leadership in politics and music. Congressman, how are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be on with you. And as a long time Spotify user, I am grateful to be able to share, hopefully not too many embarrassing things about what I listen to all the time.
Nah, we love it. No judgment over here. So, can you talk to me and us about some of the early artists you listened to growing up?
Well, look, I think if you were a young person in the early 90s, I was born in 87, right? So, you contextualize who's the biggest artist in the world at the time? Michael Jackson, right? So I knew every track on Thriller, every track on Bad, maybe a little bit of Dangerous. I remember when the world tuned in. I think it might have even been at a Super Bowl or it was a separate premiere of the Remember the Time music video with Eddie Murphy.
Oh,
So
yeah.
like everybody in my family knew that I was a big MJ stan, and I think I was MJ multiple Halloweens. I certainly was always trying to moonwalk. So that was a big one for me. But frankly, whatever was on the radio, people are always surprised that I have this affinity for like soft rock. And I think about like oldie stations that my dad would have in the truck. I always think about like just like the sort of random early soft pop. Like, oh, I played Taylor Dane on a playlist the other day, and I was like, how do I know this song? Or like John Cicada, or so, out of the blue. I have an older sister, so she listened to a lot of New Kids on the Block and New Edition. So I have a pretty eclectic taste. And but when I think about the early Black artists, certainly inspired by what we were listening to. Whether it was Quiet Storm, whether it was MJ on the pop side, whether it was Whitney or Janet, the household names, the things that made you move. That was what I was listening to.
I love that. I love that. And it feels like, this generation, that's you and ours, were the first ones that were really crossing over and listening to multiple genres. It was pretty seamless in terms of switching between genres, whether it's soft rock, whether it's Michael Jackson, whether it's, Quiet Storm. So I'm excited to hear that. I did want to follow up because you're in Rhode Island, music is very important to your district. Let's talk about Newport Jazz and Folk Festival. Do you where do you want to start?
Well, look, I've never been to Newport Jazz or Folk, embarrassingly so. Rhode Island is one of these places where it's a small area, but you don't get to have all those experiences unless you go beyond. But we know that Newport Jazz and Folk are instrumental, no pun intended, to the history of music in our country, popular music in our country. It's where Newport Folk is where Bob Dylan went electric. This summer at Newport Jazz, we're going to get Andre 3000 playing the flute. And that's a wide spectrum of history and presence in the same place, right? For almost all of its history at Fort Adams is special. But I also think about music in the Rhode Island context that certainly you would be surprised to know that like seminal artists in R&B history have been from Rhode Island. You think about LTD and Jeffrey Osborne, right? I live on a street in Rhode Island that is perpendicular to Jeffrey Osborne Way, right? And when you think about love songs, you can't get far beyond some of the hits that Jeffrey Osborne put down. When I think about the R&B group Tavares, little known group, but you would know the songs if you heard them. The first Cape Verdean artists to receive a Grammy Award, right? Like we have storied history. Ciceretta Jones, one of famous gospel singer. So for Rhode Island, we pack a big blow in the history of Black music in America and all music in America.
I absolutely agree. And, a couple more that I believe are from Rhode Island. John B. Had
Yeah,
a
John
big
B. They don't know.
90s. They don't know.
They
Come
don't
on.
know.
You know what it is. And then Blue Cantrell as well. We cannot forget. Hit 'em up.
Hit them
So
up style. Hit 'em
Yeah.
up style.
I was pleasantly surprised to find out they were from Rhode Island. So look, we talked a little bit about, some of the seminal moments for you, the importance and representation that Rhode Island has as a whole and impact on music that they've had. But I want to take it back to the music of Black artists and the popularity and the way that it is able to cross cultural lines and geographic lines. It feels like Black artists are pretty routinely at the center and the top of the charts. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it is the sort of the tapestry of Blackness is so wide, right, in terms of origin, right? I think about my background, right? I'm the son of two West African immigrants, right? When we look at the foundational pieces of our music and, we're at Afro beats now, but you think about high life, and the sounds coming out of West Africa with Nigeria and Ghana and such as a real touch point. Things that culturally came over through the sounds and the passions that enslaved people kept in their hearts as their rhythm to help them overcome, to looking at what we as Black people have done to transcend the lines and genres that have frankly been sometimes artificially set, right? You look at jazz music, you look at rock music, right? If the Beatles and the Rolling Stones don't hear American music performed by Black artists, they do not become the pop artists that they are. If you look at every boy band, I think it's just an evolution of the Temptations over and over and over again, right? So I think the genre crossing, the ability to connect to our palate, our ears, but also the specific role that we play at different inflection points has been fueled by music. And many a time, most often, I think Black music has been at the center point, at every big movement that we've had in this country.
Absolutely agreed and well said. I did want to say when you first started talking about Michael Jackson, you were talking about your parents being West African immigrants, a Liberian girl. It was in my head. I was like, you know what?
Yes.
We'll find a way. We'll come back to it. So, but you mentioned, Black people transcending, and I think that's a good kind of pivot or segue into our next question. There are, so few people of color and Black people especially in the position that you are in. Is there any advice that you could give to, people of color or anyone that's aspiring to a career in politics?
Yeah, there's such an important point to make because representation is often about inspiration. I ran for this office, and I tell people this all the time, not to make history, but to make a difference. But in the course of making a difference, you affect history. And so when I think about all that I contribute to certainly a Congressional Black Caucus, where I'm the 60th member, right? For those who don't know the Congressional Black Caucus, it is often referred to as the conscience of the Congress, started in the early 70s by the few Black members that were here to catalyze their collective experiences in their districts into legislative action, into reasonable and meaningful action at the federal government level and beyond. And so that is an honor that I have, and I get every day to see people who are usually one of a few coming from a place wherever they are in the country, where they are the symbol of progress. They are the meaningful contributions of their communities to change in our country. And so what I say to young people is, you don't have to be elected, but you have to pick a place, you have to pick a cause, and you have to pick a course of action. Right. And what I mean by that is when I say pick a place, I mean a constituency. You have to think about who you're serving, right? You center others, and that can be people who look like you. But in some cases, it can be for a lot of people who don't look like you. I represent a district that is less than 10% Black in composition, but that doesn't diminish my connection to our interests. Gotta pick a cause. For me, making government work for everyday people. That is the what I think about expanding opportunity, making sure that everybody can thrive in our economy. That's my cause. When I think about our course of action, well, for me, it was, get up, stand up, run for office. But before that, I worked for people in these positions for two presidents, President Biden, President Obama, and a governor. And so that my course of action was to get involved. And so when you look at the spectrum of how you can effectuate change, it's not one way, but you do need to have a theory, and you have to have some discrete ways to jump off into it. But I know if your heart's in the right place, you're moving in the right direction.
I love that answer. And again, it's just so important to see and have representation in all that we do. So thank you for the work that you do, the work that you have done, and everything that you will do. We're going to wrap it up now. I have one more question for you. What are you listening to right now?
Man, see, you get me into trouble here because I don't know if everything's for public consumption, but I would say, I was very deep into Kendrick and Drake's Dust Up. We'll put it that way. So, it's, Not Like Us is a motivational track in some ways because, it's election season right now. And some folks aren't like us. So that's one. The second is I've been going down a road of oldies. So like I queue up a yacht rock playlist every now and then because, it's summertime, the breeze is out. You might be spending some time on a porch or a patio, and sometimes you just want something easy listening. But I always go back to the classics, the things that shaped my mind in lots of ways. So I was getting ready for Nas. He's doing this tour around the country with orchestras, and he's coming to Providence in a couple weeks. And so I'm hoping to go. And so I've been going through the Nas catalog. So starting with Illmatic, which is such a formative album for me, coming out in 1994. I remember my older brother listening to it. The tracks on there that shape my life, from Represent to One Time for Your Mind to It Ain't Hard to Tell. So I that's where I am right now. But the thing is, as you heard, I'm a genre shifting listener to music. So the algorithms on Spotify sometimes get confused by me.
Yeah, it's good. We appreciate your insight. I love the music you listen to, and hopefully we get to spend a little more time together. But thank you very much, Congressman.
I look forward to it. I hope everybody listens to as much music as possible, especially Black Music Month.
On Spotify. Thanks.